Hey there, it's Mr. K, and welcome to today's AP Lit lecture. Forgive me in advance. I have a bit of a cold here, so I might have to pause every once in a while and blow my nose or cough or something. So just be aware. Okay, today we're working on the skill of developing a defensible claim about an interpretation of a text. And specifically, this lesson is going to help you gather evidence from a short piece of fiction and then use that evidence to develop a claim about the first person point of view in the story. And so this lesson is all about kind of stopping and looking back on what we've studied so far. Looking at things like character and point of view and narrator and structure and setting. And how do you actually go about writing about one of those elements, right? And so today is really putting into practice the analysis of an element like first person point of view, all right? So you'll see how to actually write about point of view, all right? So the goals today, we have three. We need to understand what makes claims either strong or weak in our own writing. We need to understand how evidence goes about supporting claims. And we need to understand how to make paragraphs more convincing. And so those are our goals. Okay, let's talk about weak claims first. And, last lecture was all about what a claim is. So now that we have that down, now let's talk about what makes a claim weak. It might be restating the prompt or rephrasing it in your own words, but you don't put forth an original idea. And so, I don't need to. Hopefully, I don't need to expand on that too much. But if you are just restating the on the AP Lit exam, let's say you're taking the prompt that they've given you, and just kind of rephrasing it or restating it, that's a problem. That even though what you're saying is accurate, is true, that doesn't show your ability to analyze. That shows your ability to rephrase or restate. Okay. Weak claims are generic and superficial. They say nothing specific to the story or the prompt. And in your writing, you may provide a claim, but you don't respond to the prompt, right? So there's this idea that you can miss the mark, in not responding to the prompt at all. If it says, discuss how we see the idea of, poetic justice played out in this piece, in this text, or whatever the prompt is. You may write a claim and it doesn't talk about poetic justice at all, in which case you've missed the mark. Or you might say that, in this excerpt from whoever, we see poetic justice at work. Okay, well, you hit the mark in that case, but you didn't offer something new. You just restated this idea. You know what I mean? So it's making sure that your claim is focused on the right target, and it speaks to it deeply and thoroughly. Right? So strong claims do that. They put forth an original idea that's a result of an accumulation of evidence. This word accumulation, I talk about with my students at length, and we'll kind of reiterate that idea in today's lecture. But sorry, I had to cough. But in the last lecture, that's what we talked about is a claim really being born not from a single piece of evidence, but many different ideas that the reader has seen in a text, and then taking all those and putting them together, right? And using those to aim towards a single idea, a single claim. And so it's really an accumulation of evidence. You don't want to respond, in your analysis, you don't want to respond to just one piece of evidence that you saw, like, ooh, that's an interesting idea. If it doesn't play into kind of a bigger idea that you can analyze, you're going to run out of things to say pretty quickly. But strong claims are a result of an accumulation of evidence over time. Strong claims provide big ideas that need to be defended with evidence. So, your claim has to be defensible. Can't just be a statement of fact. It needs to be something that you could argue and support with evidence, and yet someone could come in and say, actually, I disagree. I think it's actually this, and they could support their idea with evidence. That's what this whole venture, of reading literature more deeply is really about, is analyzing and sharing ideas and defending those ideas with evidence, and then hearing someone else's analysis and thinking, oh, I didn't really think of that, and defending it, and then hearing someone else's defense. And then, of course, you need to respond to the prompt in an insightful way, which is easier said than done. But with practice, and with consistent analysis on your part, you'll get better and better at that. Really responding to prompts in an insightful way. Okay, so those are some characteristics of weak claims and strong claims. I want to use this excerpt from Raymond Carver's short story Cathedral. And I said this in the past, I think it was last lecture, maybe a couple lectures ago, starting to lose track. But if you haven't read the story as a whole, that's okay. You'll still be able to think through this. But I just want to show you an example of, taking this excerpt of text and turning that into a claim that can be defended, and then actually putting forth a paragraph, a finished paragraph. So let me read this excerpt from Raymond Carver. Okay, this is what he writes. This blind man, an old friend of my wife's, he was on his way to spend the night. His wife had died, so he was visiting the dead wife's relatives in Connecticut. He called my wife from his in-laws. Arrangements were made. He would come by train, a 5-hour trip, and my wife would meet him at the station. She hadn't seen him since she worked for him one summer in Seattle 10 years ago. But she and the blind man had kept in touch. They kept tapes and mailed them back and forth. I wasn't enthusiastic about his visit. He was no one I knew. And his being blind bothered me. My idea of blindness came from the movies. In the movies, the blind moved slowly and never laughed. Sometimes they were led by seeing eye dogs. A blind man in my house was not something I looked forward to. Okay, so in this quick excerpt, you have our speaker, our first-person narrator, and you have him speaking about this friend of his wife's coming to stay with them, who is a blind man, and he's talking about how he feels about that, right? And he says that he's not enthusiastic, and he's not looking forward to it, right? And so that's definitely worth analyzing, right? So let's take that excerpt and let's look at a weak claim, all right? Let's say you wrote this as kind of your claim, your thesis for your paper. The first person point of view in Raymond Carver's Cathedral adds to the story. Now first, notice, that is actually true. It's not that what is written is incorrect. It's that all it does is identify the point of view. It doesn't say anything specific to the story or the point of view. It's a generic phrase that can be applied to just about any story. And so, students fall into this because they assume, and I once did the same thing, I assumed that just because what I wrote was true, that uh, that it's gonna count. It's gonna be a good way to go about writing this paper or whatever the case may be. Right? The first person point of view, it is first person. In Raymond Carver's Cathedral, that is the piece. Adds to the story. It does, right? I check those boxes, right? Great. Now I can move on. The problem is that is a very weak claim. Very, very weak. Uh, and there's really not much to actually add to as far as that claim is concerned. Right. I think this student would find very quickly that their analysis is either way too vague or disorganized or underdeveloped. It's like you put all the ingredients for a cake together and then you put it in for half the time it's supposed to bake, and you take it out. It's just like it's the pieces of a cake, but it's just not fully formed. That's what it sounds like to me. Let's look at some evidence from the text. And so now this would be me stepping in with that student. Let's say the student showed me this. Okay, Mr. K, what do you think about this claim? I read it and I say, okay, what you have is true, but it's just not enough. So let's add to it. Here's some evidence. All right, here's some quotes. She hadn't seen him since she worked for him one summer in Seattle 10 years ago, but she and the blind man had kept in touch. So this man is saying that his wife and this man from 10 years ago have kept in touch. Our first person narrator goes on to say that I wasn't enthusiastic about his visit. He was no one I knew. His being blind bothered me. My idea of blindness came from the movies. A blind man in my house was not something I looked forward to. Okay, look at that evidence. All these wonderful pieces of evidence, these clues from the author. It's just like screaming out at you, like ask questions about me, like figure me out. So let's take that evidence and let's take this claim, right, and put it back in the oven, so to speak, and really cook it, to its perfection. Okay, so we take this evidence. Here's a stronger claim. In Raymond Carver's Cathedral, the narrator's bias against the blind man is revealed through the first person point of view and is a lens through which we can see the narrator's insecurities and apprehensions. Now, also true, right? Also true. Just like our weak claim was true. But this one, obviously, you can see right off the bat, it has depth. It talks about these ideas of bias in the narrator. At the end, it talks about the narrator's insecurities and apprehensions, right? It's really taking evidence that the author gave us, this gift from the author, and saying like, okay, now this first person point of view, what does that actually allow us to learn? Well, it really allows us to learn that this first person narrator, it doesn't just add to the story. It really shows us that our narrator has bias and insecurities and apprehensions, And so this, this claim is strong. And notice also, though it's true, someone could come in and say, okay, I agree that the narrator's bias against the blind man is revealed through first person. And I do think it's a lens. I don't know that we would as much say that it's a way we see the narrator's insecurities and apprehensions. Maybe it would show the narrator's blank and blank instead. And you'd say, okay, well, yeah, let's explain that to me. Where do you see that? You know what I mean? And two or more people can defend their claims, with evidence. And so that's what we're trying to get at, is turn our claims, change them from weak to strong. Now, once we've done this part, we have a strong claim. Excellent. We are off to we are off to a good start as far as putting an analysis together. I wanted to show you an example from CollegeBoard, from their daily videos that I'm using as sort of the uh, source material for all this. They gave a paragraph. Sometimes I write my own, sometimes I use theirs, depending on what I'm feeling that day. But I just want to show you a paragraph based on this thesis that you see in front of you, this claim. So let me read this, and so you can just get a feeling, start to get the kind of vibe of how to go from reading to gathering ideas to forming a claim to writing a paragraph. Okay, so here's what they wrote. In Raymond Carver's Cathedral, the narrator's bias against the blind man is revealed through the first-person point of view and is a lens through which we can see the narrator's insecurities and apprehensions. Okay, so there's our claim. His bias is a result of ignorance, as he admits that his, quote, idea of blindness came from the movies. He does not know this man, nor does he seem willing to get to know him. He even confesses that, quote, a blind man in my house was not something I looked forward to, and that he, quote, wasn't enthusiastic about his visit. This reveals his reluctance to the gathering. While the narrator hints at a close connection between his wife and the blind man, little of that is revealed. That's because the first-person point of view gives the reader a glimpse of his discomfort and security, not genuine appreciation for strong social connections. All right. It starts with the claim. It provides evidence, and then it goes on to comment on that evidence. You hear so many terms: claim, evidence, warrant, thesis, evidence, explanation. Explanation might be called commentary. It's just the terms are crazy. I wish we could all sort of just say, okay, listen, we're going to call it this. But basically, what you have is the claim, the first sentence. Here's what I'm arguing. Then the next sentence, or in this case, sentence or two or three even, is evidence, quotes, or, it could be a quote or paraphrase or summary. And then some commentary. This is the author, you, coming in and saying and writing about how the evidence proves the claim. Once you do those three parts, you're on your way to putting a paragraph together, right? And so we will, we'll look at many examples of this process, but just wanted to give you kind of the starting point for putting a paragraph together. So, for a claim to be defensible, it needs to be insightful. Insights are the result of gathering evidence and evaluating its importance. And we need to convince readers of the claim and the value of the supporting evidence. So all of those things happen naturally when you put the paragraph together, like we just saw, right? And give me a moment. I'm going to try and use my pen here. Okay. So we have our claim. This is going to be a bit ugly. Ooh, wow. That's really ugly. Okay. No worries. Claim. That's our claim. All right. Then we have some evidence. From here to here. It's these horizontal lines that are the hardest when I'm using my trackpad. Okay. There's evidence. And then here is your commentary. I'm so sorry. But you see, there's those three parts. All right. Once you do that, once you have those parts, you are on your way. All right. Let's get rid of that nonsense. All right. So today's goals, we wanted to understand what makes claims either strong or weak, Ask yourself that question. If you can answer that question, great. If not, maybe review those ideas. Understand how evidence supports a claim, and then understand how to make paragraphs more convincing. All right. We will continue to talk about these ideas, of course, but those were the kind of starting points for today. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.